Welcome back. Want to introduce you to our show, S.I.T, Social Issues Time. I'm Francois Booker Drew, and I want to introduce you to my amazing, wonderful, incredible, dynamic co-host.
Oh, you shouldn't have.
I just give y'all such love. So you want to get? Well, you do that, girl. I'll keep going. What are some other words? Magnanimous. Make up stuff. So Tildy, go with me.
Hi, everybody.
They are our my wonderful co-hosts today, and so we want to thank you for once again joining in with us. We're continuing our conversation on women and religion. Guys, what'd you think about the last episode?
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Very insightful.
Yeah.
Very insightful. It makes you ponder on things and really think about what she had to say.
Right. So we had Dr. Hinjar, who is the CEO, president of Texas Muslim Women's Foundation, and she was our guest and really gave us some nuggets of wisdom.
She sure did.
Yeah, she did. And I love the work that they're doing at the Texas Women's. I mean, the interfaith work and and I think that's probably the most important part, the interfaith work and the education that they're doing for all of those different communities.
Right. So I love the work that they're doing and wanted to introduce them to you all. And so we're continuing this conversation because what we noticed is that women really don't talk a lot about our faith and how it impacts who we are and really connecting to people that are different. Exactly. And so that's what these conversations are really about. And so I want to introduce to you today Ingra Green Johnson. Ingra is not only a friend of mine and a co-worker, but she is just a dynamic woman who has a great life experience, and I'm just honored for her to be here. Ingra is not only the office manager extraordinaire at World Vision U.S. programs in our North Texas office, but she also is a minister, and she is a wonderful Christian leader in the community. And so I just wanted to bring her on and introduce everybody to the wonderful lady that I get to hang out with every day. So Ingrid, thanks for being here.
Oh, it is indeed a pleasure.
Hi, Ingrid.
Hello. We're so excited to have you on today.
I'm excited to be here, truly.
Yeah, so Ingrid, first question, tell us a bit about who you are and how your faith impacted who you've become.
Oh, wow. So who I am is I'm a woman. I am a woman trying to make sense of this thing we call life. And if it was not for my faith, not that I have arrived, but if it was not for my faith, the journey so far would have been so much more muddled than it has been. My faith in Christ has really helped to clear up a lot of questions. You know how life is full of those conundrums, those things that we just cannot for the life of us figure out. Why is this happening? Where am I going? Who should I be taking with me? Just all those kinds of things. And so my faith in Christ really gives me insight, not like crystal ball, but just that confirming within myself that I am doing the right things or headed in the right directions. In a nutshell.
Ingra, my second question would be for you as a woman in ministry in Christianity. We know some of the hierarchical issues that exist with women and being in leadership. How has that been for you?
So actually, I have not come across any strange situations there. I've heard of situations where women ministers have been denied an opportunity to speak in certain forums and whatnot, but I, thank God, haven't come across that yet. My thoughts on it are, though, that God is so vast and so big and huge. To limit him to speak through just one gender is really doing a disservice for all of mankind. Because there's different experiences that we all bring, or that experiential knowledge that we have with Christ that adds to our lives, that so many people are missing out on if we decide to limit ourselves to only hear from certain people. So it's a real disservice to the rest of the world, really. And I'm just thankful I have not had to deal with that yet.
You are very fortunate. So what do you think? I mean, because I guess in Christianity right now, the thing is, is whether or not there's a lot of different factions of extremism within not only Christianity but other religions. But speaking from a Christianity standpoint, what do you think are some of our biggest challenges within Christianity, and how do we overcome those as women?
I think one of the biggest challenges is our inability to look for God in everyone, or to look for what God has placed that benefits us all within everyone. When we decide to limit ourselves and then instead start to judge based on differences instead of rallying around the commonalities, I think there's power in agreement. And so when we neglect to sit and see how can we agree on things and instead dabble or fuss and fight over the petty things, there's that saying, the devil is in the details. Well, I really believe that, especially when it comes to how we are trying to communicate with one another. So yeah, when we get bogged down in those differences, that's where I believe we begin to get into trouble. And that's not just going from Christianity to other religions. That's even Christianity within its multi-denominational facets. When we start to focus on those things that are differences, it really does distract us from heading in the right direction. We'll gain more momentum if we rally around those commonalities and just push forward from there. So I think that's a huge challenge for us. A lot of us, though, that comes from, when opinions or things that you've been taught over the years from people that you trust, you hold on to that almost, with more fervor and give it more credence than some people even give the word of God itself. If Granny said it, then that's what I'm going to hold on to. And if anybody else says anything different, then you're wrong. And so I think when we just hold on to those things from tradition's sake or what have you, again, it limits us and just all the wheels start to fall off instead of us pressing forward from that point that we all have in common. We are all God's creation. And all of us being humanity, if we start to move in those directions that will better humanity, and how do we collectively do that, then I think we will begin to gain more momentum. But it's going to take some openings of hearts and minds in order for us to really begin to do that in an effective way.
In your opinion, Ingrid, what's the advice that you can give our audience to have open dialogue about, interfaith?
For me, a lot of what I am motivated by my faith. Okay. I try to stay in constant communication with God. I want to hear what He has to say to me. He created me, He created my life. And so it only makes sense that I go to Him and ask Him, how should I go about doing this? For instance, even before doing this interview, I had to inquire of God, should I even do this? And so I think, just speaking from the Christian perspective, that we should really just kind of ask God, what is His opinion? How should I go about speaking to, other sisters? And there is wisdom. I think one thing is we are fearful of those things that we don't understand. And so I think even just there, Joyce Meyer, a very prominent minister, she has this saying, and I believe it's probably a book or a whole series that's called Do It Afraid. So I think those things that we even fear, if we just move forward and just do it, just have those conversations, then we'll begin to gain some momentum. And I think over time, those opportunities will present themselves to us. And then we can just walk into those conversations and just be who God made us to be. If we go in them with a certain agenda or with a point to prove, that's not going to work. But if we go in it just to find out, who is this other woman? Then I think we'll gain so much more, and we'll be able to communicate in a much more amicable way that will really benefit us all.
Ingrid, what are some of the stereotypes that you think people have of women in Christianity?
I I'll say I know some of the stereotypes that, or have heard some of the stereotypes that the world has of Black women in Christianity, which kind of don't differ from just regular stereotypes in my opinion, but just that there's an agenda to run things or to be domineering. I've heard that women especially in ministry in Christianity, don't want to quote unquote submit to authority. I think that's basically it. That there's this desire supposedly that we have to usurp the man's authority. That's typically what I've heard, which is far from the truth. Because I think that's it. It's innate in all. I think it's innate, and I'll just speak for myself. God did create me as a woman to be a helpmate to, we'll say, for instance, to my husband. And so although I was a single mom for many, many, many years, and it was a struggle when I did get married, to find that, and I'm still trying to find it, by the way, to find that place of ease in my role. The desire is still in me not to run things. I had to do it when I was a mom on my own, but the way I was created was with a desire to help. And so that I just am trying to rest in that rather than running things per se. So I think that not all women want to do that. We don't want to have to compete and that kind of thing, because there's no peace in that.
Well, and I think what's really interesting is, especially in the African American church, it's primarily women. I mean, and so you're beginning to see this kind of tide change where, you know, before there were a lot of men, there are so many women that are in the, you know, pews now, that I think that changes the dynamic of how women are now having to be involved in religion in a really different way.
Yeah. Women are because like you said, because there are so many women, we're leading our families. I mean, we all know it's no secret that a lot of men have kind of stepped down in the families and are kind of disappearing. And so who is left to hold the family together, even spiritually, but the women? And so it's the grandmothers and the moms that you see bringing the children to church and making sure that they're fed spiritually. So yeah, that does make sense that we see that number increasing even more so.
Yeah, that's a whole nother conversation in itself about where are the men in church and why aren't they involved? And, you know, I've heard people say things like, well, you know, why should I go? He's doing what I do out here. And that's a whole nother conversation. But it does say that there are some gender differences that exist even in terms of people that attend church and who are in leadership because of who's in attendance. So a lot to think about with that. That's probably another topic in itself. Wow.
Can we have you back on?
Sure. Any other questions, ladies, that you may have of Ingrid? Or, you know, Ingrid, what would be like your last thoughts that you would want to give? And Tilda, do you have anything that you want to say?
No, I think for me, you know, it's just, I'm excited about the rise of women in leadership positions and that want leadership positions within religions. I'm excited about that because I think we've let the men kind of run things for as long as, for up to now, for a very long time. And it would be nice to see more women in leadership positions, to see a better balance.
I agree, and I sense a huge paradigm shift coming.
Yeah, there's a huge shift.
Big time.
It is, and it's neat to see that, you know, you have the Henjars and Ingrid Greens who are involved in changing what that looks like by their involvement. That says that we're on the cusp of something.
Right. It's inspiring, and it inspires other women to rise up too and speak up.
Right.
And it's also great. Thank you to the men that support those women in those leadership positions, because it's not easy for them to do that when they're going against the grain and so many years of
being
doing
in that role.
Being in that role. So kudos to them for standing up for women.
Right.
And hats off to you.
Right. And she's married to an amazing man, and so they just have a great family. Ingrid, last words. What would you want viewers to know about faith and women and us connecting to each other?
I was just having a conversation, actually to backtrack just a little bit. Someone was saying thanks to the men that are supporting, and then you mentioned my husband. He's actually here supporting me now. Because he knew I was nervous coming on, so he was like, well, do you want me to just, sit there and be there with you? Oh, yes, I do. So yes, hats off to the men that do support their women, or support women, period. Yeah. But one thing that we were talking about, and that is how we are all connected, regardless of our faith, and even within our faiths, regardless of our denomination. God created all of us in His image, and that image of Him it's not fragmented. We've done those things, but I think that for each of us, as we are pursuing truth, and as we are pursuing and looking for who is this, this God that we're looking for, that we're serving, or this void that we're trying to fill, I really do believe that as we pursue that we will, like I was speaking to earlier, we will start to find those commonalities. I also mentioned that there is power in agreement. So I think, again, us being made in God's image and moving toward Him, that He will begin to help all the other things just kind of fade by the wayside as we just move forward. And so I think what I would like to say to most women is to continue the pursuit of truth. And I think that as we continue that pursuit, it's almost like a triangle. As we, with God being at the very top, as we continue to try to get to Him, you'll notice that it also brings us together as well. And so I really think that that's going to be key for all of us. And God will show each of us who He is, despite opinions or despite traditions or despite whatever's been told to us or given to us or fed to us. He'll tell us who He is. And in that journey, we will begin to know more about who we are and respect and love each other for who God has made each of us to be.
Wow. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Beautifully said.
Thank you, Ingrid, for being with us. We appreciate you coming on and giving insight. You're also somebody that we have to have come back, because your life is just so interesting and amazing, and it's something that women need to hear about, how you can be successful with your faith and just going through trials and still making a difference. So you're an amazing lady. I'm honored to know you, and I'm thankful that you took time out to be here today. So thanks again.
Well, it was indeed an honor, and I would love to come back anytime.
Thank you,
Ingrid. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ladies, any final thoughts before we close out this episode?
I just want to say that I really believe God is doing an amazing work in everywhere. Yeah. Doesn't matter what religion. I'm getting emotional thinking about it.
I agree. I think it is a beautiful thing to hear people that have very different faith journeys and lens, and yet it's almost the same conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Exactly.
And so I think what we've done is limited God to being in this box, and God is so much bigger. And God has such purpose and plans for all of us. And the fact that we're part of that is just awesome.
Exactly. I mean, there's a reason for everything, things happen for a reason. Yeah. And I think, with faith you have devotion, and they work together.
Yeah. I went to my aunt's funeral, and it was a Catholic rosary that they were doing, and they asked, actually it was the funeral, the service, and when they had people, they were going to take the Eucharist, and when the priest said, if you're not a Catholic, you can't partake of the Eucharist.
Right.
And that was the first time that I felt, wow, I'm a Christian. I'm in a Christian church, and somebody is telling me that I cannot partake because I'm not Catholic, and it was the first time that I kind of felt really sad, Where before I may have gotten angry, but this time I was really sad to think, in the Methodist church that I attend, everybody's welcome.
Right.
And here a Catholic priest was telling half of us who were there, who weren't Catholic anymore, that we couldn't partake. And I thought, how sad.
It is.
Because there's still that rift even within Christianity itself. And I hope that one day it's lifted,
I think being in this multicultural society today, as I mentioned earlier in our conversation, I see a huge paradigm shift about to happen.
Yeah.
And it's going to be big. So the world needs to be ready. There's women making huge strides right now.
Yeah.
Well, and I think the conflict that we're seeing now, as much as people are afraid of the conflict, it is through conflict that we're able to have some conversations and you're able to see some changes happen. Right. And so as much as people are going, what's going on? Why is this happening? I tend to take a view of this is something good because it forces people to deal with issues that for so long we've pushed under the table and we've hidden. And now we're getting to a crossroads where we have to deal with some very, tough, uncomfortable issues. But in order for us to have the changes that we want, I think we have to. These kinds of conversations are important for us. And I think as women, sometimes we get so blindsided by what's going on because we're so busy being moms and everything else and working and, take care of families. And we don't really think about that the sister who's next to me, despite our differences, we are still having the same kind of struggle.
Right.
Exactly.
And so how do I get to know you and talk to you and share and learn from you and realize, man, we have more in common that, just for me today, it was two very different people, very different life experiences, but yet their view and expression of what God is to them is so similar.
Yeah.
It's same. I mean, and so that is such a beautiful thing that despite our differences, there's so much we have in common.
And until we accept, that's when change is going to take place.
Yes.
Yeah. And, for me, it was eye-opening because I've hosted women from all over the world, from Afghanistan, India, Pakistan, Georgia, Russia, you name it.
Right.
And every time when I ask them all the same question, what has surprised you coming to the United States? And they're like, how you have the same problems that we have in our respective countries. Every single one, doesn't matter what country they're from. And that goes to exactly what you guys are saying. It's like we're all so similar if we could only see that.
Exactly. Exactly. So we're on the cusp of even more great conversations. We'll be talking about topics like these and human trafficking and just an array of conversations because we think it's important to bring these topics up so that we can create the change in our society. And I think before we even look at society, I think it's about the interpersonal change.
Yeah.
And so by having these conversations, I think for even what we experienced today, it made you go, wow, that's what we want people to walk away with. There's so much silliness out there already. We want people to walk away with going, I never thought about that before. And so hopefully you're having that experience from, the shows that we're providing. We want your feedback and input, and we want to make sure that we're talking about things that are important to you as well. So please check us out. Send notes on Twitter and Facebook. We're responsive. And so we'd like to be able to know what's important to you. And so thank you once again for tuning in. Ladies, any last comments you want to give?
I just want to share with our viewers that I've learned so much, even behind the scenes.
We will not talk about those behind the scenes conversations. That is the 1999.
I had to add that in. That's what the NDA was for.
That's the 1999 that you have to pay to see. Because those are kind of private conversations.
I said I learned.
Oh, you learned some things that you won't learn in school, sister. Let me tell you, not from these conversations. So that's another show. That's the late night. That's the 10 o'clock show.
So bad.
So we are learning a whole lot, and we're hoping that you're learning too. So thanks again for joining us on our latest and greatest episode of S.I.T. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.